Matthew here from MiniWarGaming.com, bringing you another Beat Matt Bat Rep.
We work so you can play. MiniWarGaming's Beat Matt Bat Rep.
This is going to be a special one because it is episode 20 of Season 2. And Season 2 is drawing to a close. We're not quite there yet because we're getting ready to hopefully to do a Battle Report tournament, as you may have seen in a previous video. Anyway, this one's special because it's going to be myself against myself. I'm going to be playing a Necron force, and I'm going to be playing against my own Tyranid force. Now, it's a little tricky when you play against yourself because, well, you know your tactics, you know your armies really well, and you know what the other person would bring. In fact, if I were to say, okay, this is what I'm going to bring for my Necrons, my Tyranids would be like, okay, I'll bring this then. And then I'd be like, well, I'll bring this then, and I'll bring this then, and I'll bring this then. So to get rid of all of that confusion, everything is random. Well, almost everything. First off, I randomly decided that Necrons would be the first to make their army. Then we rolled in each of the force organization slots to see how many of each I could bring. After that, I rolled for each of those slots to see what that was, making sure it was a legal 1,500 point list. So we've got a very interesting Necron list. The Tyranids did the very same thing, and we also have a very interesting Tyranid list with some models that I don't normally bring. And so we've got two random, or mostly random. I chose a few of the upgrades, but most of the things were random. 1,500 points of Tyranids versus 1,500 points of Necrons. I then randomly chose how the terrain would go on the table. And then we randomly chose, or I randomly chose, it's not we, it's just me. I randomly chose which mission we're going to be doing. And it ends up being seize ground. In other words, D3 plus 2 objectives. And then we rolled, and we have 3 objectives, which you'll see in a second. And spearhead, which is table quarters. You choose a table quarter, your opponent gets the opposite one, and then you fight. So we're going to have 3 objectives. Spearhead, which is a difficult one to play, both for anybody, for attackers such as the Tyranids, and for the defenders who are going to be sitting back and shooting and taking the hits, such as the Necrons. So it should be a very interesting game. I'm going to play my hardest on both sides. I'm not going to try to let the Necrons win or the Tyranids win. I want to see a very good match here. So let's jump into it. Let's take a look at the random armies as well as the way the table has been set up. Let's start by taking a look at my 1,500 point Necron army. Now remember, this is a randomly generated list, but it was kind of fun to see what happened when I just randomly threw together a list and saw what popped up. Leading the charge is going to be an Overlord. He's got a War Scythe, Resurrection Orb, and Mind Shackle Scarabs. He's going to join a group of Immortals. There's 9 of them. But instead of Gauss Blasters, they are actually standing in for Tesla Carbines, just to have some fun with that. We've got 10 Warriors, and they are going to embark on a Ghost Arc. So that is the other troop choice. So only 2 troop choices were generated by this list. We've got 5 Death Marks. That is one of our elites. We've got 7 Lich Guard, just with the War Size, and they're being joined by... Oh, I realized this is illegal. Whoops. We got a Lord and a Cryptek both joining that squad. Yeah, I made a mistake there. 5 Scarab Swarms. I'm used to having 2 Overlords. A Necron Monolith as a heavy support, and a Doomsday Arc as the other heavy support. So yes, definitely something wrong with that Lichguard group. They should not all be in there with the Lord and the Cryptek. But as you're going to find out throughout this game, little spoiler alert, the Cryptek doesn't do anything, so it doesn't really matter. Now on the Tyranid side, it was a little more interesting to see what popped up here. We have an HQ and a troop choice, both as Tervagons. We got 2 Tervagons here with no upgrades, because when I rolled everything, I didn't have any points for upgrades for them. We've got 3 Warriors with Scything Talons and Rending Claws. That's 1 troop choice right there, and also Synapse. We've got 2 groups of 3 Ripper Swarms, also troop choices, but cannot take objectives. We've got a group of 11 Termagants. We're going to find out this is actually going to be 8 Termagants because I made a mistake and they removed 3 of them later on. We've got 10 Gargoyles as a fast attack. And we've got a Doom of Melantai and a Mycetic Spore. That was random, and it came. I didn't choose it. It actually came randomly. And 1 Zoanthrope. There would have been more Zoanthropes, but that's the last Zoanthrope model I have. And it's actually supposed to be 3 heavy support choices. This is going to be a stand-in for a Tyrannifex with the Rupture Cannon, the 2 Strength 10 AP4 shots, and Old One-Eye. Now, I forgot to put the Trigon in here, but there's also a Trigon heavy support. Not a Trigon Prime, because I could not afford to upgrade him. Taking a look at the board, I randomly generated the train as much as I could, so this is what you have. And then I even rolled off to see which missions we're playing, and we're going to be playing Seize Ground, and I rolled off how many objectives, and we ended up getting 3 objectives. And I even rolled off if the Necron part of me or the Tyranid part of me got to place first. So it was actually Tyranids got to place first, so the Tyranid part of me wanted to spread these out and kind of get them on either side, because I know that the Necron side of me likes to sit back and just fire and then wait into combat that way. And so if I have the objectives spread out, that gives me a better chance of doing that. Now we rolled off, and the Tyranids get to deploy first. There's a Trigon I was talking about. So we put all the big guys up front. That's the Trinifex on the right-hand side, Old One Eye on the left-hand side, Trigon in the middle, and the 2 Tervagons flanking him. And they're just going to spawn as many Termagants as they possibly can. And then I just dropped down a lot of Termagants out front with the Ripper Swarms behind. The Ripper Swarms, of course, wanting to get their cover save, 3+ cover. So they get a +1 for their stealth rule. Gargoyles are going to be on the left flank, ready to fly over into the train and then fly over to the Necron side. Remember, at this point, I don't know how the Necrons are going to set up, because I can't really know how I'm going to set up the Necrons until I set up the Tyranids. But this is how I decided to do it. The Doomsday Ark gets his nice high perch there, so he has line of sight. The Monolith doesn't really need a high perch to get line of sight. Ghost Ark up nice and close so that he can do his rapid firing. And then right beside the Ghost Ark, on the other side, is going to be the Immortal Squad, and they're going to be joined by the Overlord. And they're up here so they can have a good line of sight, and also so the Tyranids have to charge through cover, giving them the higher initiative. And then the Lich Guard are going to be behind the Ghost Ark and just kind of move up, because they're the ones who are going to try to deal as much damage as possible. And then we've got the 5 Scarab Swarms. They're going to hide behind over here, see what they can do. The Death Marks are going to stay in reserve. So in reserve, we have the Doom of Malantai and a Myset Explorer and the 5 Death Marks. And then we also have the 10 Warriors that are inside of that Ghost Ark. So pretty straightforward deployment. Spearhead has you deploying in a table quarter, at least 12 inches away from the center. That's what those dice mark out. They're going to disappear very soon. And that is how we're set up. Now we're going to see, are the Necrons going to be able to steal initiative? That would be a big deal if they could. Of course, on the 6th, they get to steal it. So here we go. I get to roll it. And they do not. So Tyranids will have first turn. Stay tuned for round 1. If you're on YouTube, click the annotation. If you're on Mini Wargaming, click the link below. And who do you think is going to win? Leave a comment below.